Okay, this is not really a tech review channel, but I do want to talk about some of my experiences and my recent attempts at capturing video, because it's 2016 and I find that, I want to capture VHS, maybe a little bit of cable TV, maybe a little bit of Laserdisc, maybe a little Betamax. I got a lot of formats. I got a lot of analog formats, and I'd like to just capture them to digital. What I've been doing in the past is doing the DVD recorder route. I have an old Magnavox DVD recorder that I bought just a few years ago for 49 bucks, refurbished from Walmart. And I have had other DVD recorders in the past, but this is just the latest one. The other ones have all died. They've all gone to the tech graveyard. But I just looked around and man, DVD recorders are now a precious commodity. The Magnavox that I got, you can't even buy. It's selling used for $129, new for $4.99 on Amazon. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, I didn't want to even go the DVD route, especially with cable TV, with HD cable broadcast. I think in 2016 that would be silly. I want to go direct to disc. And I was looking around at these game capture boxes that are, everybody's making them. The main guys who are making them are Hopage and AverMedia, and now Razer has one. And they're these boxes that you are supposedly plug in an HDMI connection from your game box. your fancy dancy PS3 or Xbox game box, and you can record your gameplay and put it on YouTube and make millions of dollars, supposedly. And I was thinking, man, what about being able to record into this, record movies into these, and just record to an external USB hard drive and just do it. I'm not necessarily afraid of real-time MPEG-4 encoding. If it's good, I just think, why not experiment? Why not try? Especially because I have so much VHS that I want to capture. I've just got a backlog of stuff that doing something real-time, I still, how I've captured in the past is I have a DV camera. I go from my DV camera straight into the FireWire port of a MacBook, and then I've got the video, but it's just time consuming to take the raw DV video and then compress it and none of that. If I can just do it real time, if I can just do a real time capture of a VHS tape or a laser or whatever, I think that would be cool. So I was looking around for just a cheap, something cheap to experiment, a cheap box. And looking on YouTube for reviews, and I kept coming up with this HD Game Capture Box. It's a lot of companies rebrand it. They all sell between $65 and $75. I found one for $65 from Digitnow. Again, it looks, all of these pictures, they look like they're the same box, the same thing. So, and it's a small box. It's really not that larger than an iPhone 6 Plus. It's a tiny, once you get it, you realize it's a teeny, tiny box. It's got an HDMI input, an HDMI output, and it's got a little dongle that you connect in that has component connectors. It does not have a composite connector. It only has component in and HDMI in, and that's it, and one button, okay, and a USB port. You plug in your flash drive that is FAT32 or NTFS formatted. You press the record button, and the record light comes on, and that's it. It just records, and then you press the record button again to stop. Okay, no on-screen display, no timer, no nothing. Okay. So the problem is of course my VHS deck does not have an HDMI out, so I can't just plug it into the HDMI. It doesn't have a component out. How I tried to solve this at the beginning was I got one of those little composite to HDMI adapters. I got one from this company, Kale, and it was horrible. It was horrible. It automatically up-reses to either 720p or 1080p. And again, just like this game capture box, there's a lot of companies that seem to make this exact type of box, just rebranded. And Kale was just the one I found that looked nicer and was kind of cheaper than some of the others. And the video quality was okay. The audio quality was horrible. It sounded like it was like 22 kilohertz. It was like bit crushed. It was like techno bit crushed audio. It sounded horrible. And then also the game capture box accepted it, but it sounded horrible. And then it started giving like sync errors. The audio sync was like way off by like maybe a half second. It was way off. It was horrible. And it was also giving me like 720p, 60 frames per second files. It was nuts. It was crazy. It was horrible. Maybe that's why the audio sync was off, because this thing was up-resing it to 60 frames per second, 720p or 1080p, depending upon how I had that switch selected. Maybe that's what was going on. So I was like, oh, this is not good. Went back to the drawing board, and I was thinking, okay, so I've got component. Let me try component input. So I've got my old Magnavox DVD recorder that can input. This is well known with these Magnavox recorders. You can input a composite signal to them, red, white, and yellow, just the standard RCA plugs. And it has a component output. It actually has a component output. And I was like, let's just feed it through. And it does a pass-through. It is a passive pass-through. It doesn't have to be a recording or anything. This Magnavox will just take your composite signal and send it on to component. And so I just did that. I connected the composites to this Magnavox, connected it to that little component dongle on the Digitnow, and lo and behold, it worked. The Digitnow started recording 720 by 480, 30 frame per second files. So it seems like this Digitnow recorder it records what you give it. If you have like a 1080p 60 frames per second signal, it'll lay that to an MP4 file. If you feed it into the components, you get 720 by 480, 30 frames per second file. It was fine because I'm going from VHS. It was beautiful. It worked beautiful. The files are no matter what file system you're using, FAT32, NTFS, the file size is capped at around 167 gigabytes per file. And there's not a video gap between files, but there's a little audio click.
Haven't you ever tubed?
Otherwise, the compression is good. No real problems with the compression. It laid the VHS to tape. I had the Cinemax recording of Dawn of the Dead that I just wanted to tape. On my channel earlier, I posted a really neat animated television commercial that was captured on the Digitnow. Audio sync was overall relatively rock solid throughout the thing. I did note a couple of times that it got a little weird, a little off. But overall, yeah, I mean, I used this thing for about 2 or 3 days, and I had no problems with the audio sync. The big bad problems with it were, number one, sometimes the Digitnow would just decide to corrupt a file, which is bad when you had like this 3-hour capture. And part 1 was fine, part 3 was fine, but part 2 was a corrupted MP4. these MP4s would not play. They would not play in QuickTime. They would not play in VLC. I had an MP4 repair tool. They could not recognize any audio or video streams inside these files. Even though these files were, as I said, about the 1.67 gigabyte file, they were a 1.67 gigabyte file of corruptitude, unplayable by nothing. So at times the box would just decide to not record or corrupt recordings halfway in, which is not good. And then on the third day of recording, of using this thing, I unplugged it from the power, I plugged it back in, and the thing never powered back on. The thing just died on me. Nothing I could do resuscitated it. It died. Well, I mean, come on, it's a $65 cheap Chinese box. And you kind of get what you pay for, the quality control. I'm sure you may be able to purchase this box and get years and years of usage out of it, or maybe months of usage. I got less than a week of usage before this thing died, and I'm sure it was probably just a quality control issue. I don't know what caused that. All I can tell you is that the thing died. So needless to say, I decided to return it and go to a little more higher quality capture device. So I think the pluses with this box are very simple to use, simple as can be, produces good quality files, and it can also produce, it can record 720 by 480, 30 frames per second in the 4:3 aspect ratio. It didn't squeeze it. It didn't just try to stretch it to 16:9. It just lays to tape what you give it, and so a lot of these capture boxes don't do that. They distort to a 16:9 up-res to some kind of HD resolution. And with video or lasers capture, you kind of don't want to do that. You want to keep it. In your SD 4:3 format. This box does all that. Really simple. I think the big negatives to it are, of course, there's no OSD, can't control the compression level, and the quality control is all over the map. Died in 3 days. So that's it. So I returned that, and I guess next we will talk about another box that I've used as far as video capture.